Hi and welcome to the first of the 6 modules that we have here around in the Advancing series. We wanted to start with and to lead out with the Advancing Customer module. All of us at the moment are thinking about how do we get better customer outcomes, which is then going to help us as a business grow and achieve our own outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And a lot of the demand that we see coming into us and the things that people are asking me for is how do you get customer-led change, or how do you get your leaders to have more of a customer mindset and lead more conversations with their staff to lead better customer experience and outcomes, and really change the ways that people are making decisions and communicating the business to be putting the customer more at the centre of their activities. So what I wanted to do is just give you 3 key challenges that are confronting most leaders, people and businesses in terms of making this shift to advancing their customers. I'm going to give you a really simple, clear framework about how you can advance your customers so that you can be more of a trusted advisor to both internally and externally with your customers. Whether you're in a business to business or a business to consumer orientation, I think these materials and tools will both be useful. And really the outcome then is I'd like to show you, if you do make this shift and you are putting customers at the first and last aspects, what would you see differently? What would you see in people that are doing this well? So as I said, there are really 3 key challenges that are confronting most businesses, leaders, people and teams in terms of making a customer-led change. Number 1 is that there's perhaps a subordinate relationship between, the seller and the buyer, or between the internal person and the customer in terms of the person they're serving. So this power dynamic that usually is quite long-standing in advance of this can set up a more transactional relationship. So you're really just being utilised for the things that the person wants to get done quickly, that are usually kind of high volume things and not that value orientated. And as a consequence, often you don't get the level of respect you're looking for in terms of that relationship, which then impedes your ability to create the change or that you're trying to in your situation, which really then just leads to a situation of you not being able to really realise a lot of your own goals in terms of the things you're trying to achieve. So kind of number 1 is this sort of power difference that often sits internally and externally between the provider and the buyer, or the internal person and the customer. The second one that we see commonly is when you're a long way away from the customer. So you might be somewhere in the business, but you actually don't even own the customer, or you are quite disconnected from the actual experience of the customer. So you really don't have a lot of empathy or connection to the actual emotional experience that the customer is going through. So then in terms of your own decisions and your own ways of operating, they're not really formed around the customer. They're really about, what it is that you're doing in your business area. And that leads really into the third challenge, which is the way that our KPIs are often set up, which are very intended to give you accountability for your silo. But the consequence of that is that many people, and many leaders in fact, are not thinking on behalf of the whole enterprise. They're thinking of just their little area. So the decisions again and the communication that they make is only on what's best for them, not what's best for the business, and particularly not what's often best for the customer. So putting the customer at the centre of the decisions and then considering the trade-off of the balance of decisions you make is very important to enabling this customer-led change. So how do we then shift to being more customer orientated? How do we get to be more of a trusted advisor in our internal relationships and towards our external customers? We all want to be in higher value conversations, but how do you do that? So I wanted to introduce you to this simple framework that kind of shows you in 3 steps some of the things that you can utilise to perhaps navigate better to get into more strategic conversations so you can end up being more of a trusted advisor. So this is the 3 levels. So the first is personal engagement, which I'll explain. The second one is then value levers, and particularly if you're a business to business context, it's then enterprise value levers. And the third one is then about how you enable business success within the internal stakeholders the people that you're serving into. And those three things enable you to be in a trusted advisor status. So the first one is personal engagement. And the key here is to know the goals of your customer. So we often maybe know them from an explicit business point of view, but we don't often know them from a personal point of view. So what are the goals? What are the obstacles? What are the things that that person's wanting to see changed? What's the legacy that that person is wanting to leave behind in terms of their own situation? What's the sort of social context of the things that are most important to them that's going to make them successful, growth, success, lifestyle? What are some of the things that they're looking to achieve? So we really need to understand that at a personal level. And we know from all of the research that people like in others what they like about themselves. So your ability to influence and your ability to connect with people is really about understanding what it is that they like and being able to adapt yourself to match the language and match the communication and the things that you express to them in terms of your connection. And the other part that we know from the research is you often get what you give, reciprocity, right? So if you're able to make effort to help that person achieve their own goals, then that often will come back to you in different ways and in better ways and really help you grow and achieve your own goals. So personal engagement is really key for you to becoming more of a trusted advisor, and obviously the more you know your customers, the better. Secondly, the value levers, and there's two key ones that we can utilise. The first one is what I would call a strategy. So most in a business to business context, organisations have some sort of ambition or enterprise blueprint that is defining where they're going to grow and how they're going to grow, where they're going to play as an organisation, how they're going to be competitively different. So the ability for you to understand their blueprint and to connect your activities with how they're going to grow, whether it's been growth through acquisition or strategic alliances or anything that you can connect in terms of the things that you're proposing to their strategies and to their blueprint is going to be really important. And the other one is culture or values. So normally in an enterprise blueprint you would see both, but this is how they want to work. Collaboration, ownership and accountability, innovation. So the things that are most important to that person, to that team, to that organisation in terms of how they want to work is what you need to be able to give to them. You need to put it in those ways and connect the things that you're doing in language to both their strategy and their values, because again, it's going to seem like then that you're part of their business. You understand the landscape that they work in and the challenges that they have and what success looks like from a bigger picture point of view for that business. So that's step two. And then the third step is enabling business success. So I think about this in sort of three ways. One is you need to be good at what you do. So if you're in risk or marketing or HR, your functional competence is a given, I guess, right, in terms of what it is that you do. But the other two areas that really are going to set you apart is how well you are able to help that person internally be successful. Who are their key stakeholders? Who are the key people that are around them that you need to help them with to succeed internally? Because that's going to be a massive part of their success, is being able to be respected by the key stakeholders that they're trying to serve or to work with internally. And then the second part is the external context. What's the macro environment that they're facing into? What's happening in their competitive landscape? What businesses are they looking to be similar to learn from, to be able to grow faster or to do things better? So if you can actually, and this is all about context, it's going outside your technical competence to being able to work through people and able to generate better business outcomes by better understanding the context of the person that you're trying to serve or the customer that you're trying to support and help. So those three things then are the key steps and key enablers to be a trusted advisor. You need to know them well personally, know their goals intimately. You need to draw on the two key levers, which is strategy and values, their own values and their strategy, what they want, how they're trying to grow and how they'd like to work. And then thirdly is know their context, both what makes success internally for them and what they're facing into externally to make them more successful in terms of their position in the market. And all that leads to trusted advisor status. Nearly every CEO you talk to wants more commercial acumen from their people. In this context, what I wanted to talk about, just show you, is if you do get to this position of being a trusted advisor, or both internally and external, what are some of the things that you would see differently? So to be able to know that that person has shifted from being a sort of transactional, process-orientated person to being perhaps more strategically orientated, being more of a trusted advisor, advancing their customers. So one of the first things you'll see is their ability to understand the bigger picture. So they're thinking on behalf of the enterprise rather than their silo. And that becomes really obvious in terms of the conversations that you're having and the way that they think through problems if you're in meetings with them. Secondly, is the ability of that person to talk the language of the business. So often, again, that we might be very good at our own area, our functional competence in whatever role or function we're playing, but we're not actually able to translate that into the language of how our customers talk. And that's again matching the language and the things that are most important to them. And particularly as you advance up and you want to be more of a trusted advisor and have more strategic conversations, they need to be more business orientated conversations. Things that are driving revenue, that are driving profit, that are driving customers, that are the real essence of kind of what it is that's kind of making a change to the business that your customers are focused on. Thirdly is you're actually going to be able to talk about and measure and the impact that this is having. Whether it's internal or external, you'll be able to recognise actually impact from the work that you're doing, and the people that you're serving will actually talk about the difference and the impact that you're making. And I guess most of us are measuring that in NPS in many ways, but this is more about, go to them for this if you want to get that. And that's the kind of language you'll hear your customers talking to. And then lastly, and I guess this is perhaps more, both in an internal and external point of view, is you'll get invited to have a seat at the table. If you're giving strategic value, if you're making that person, you're helping that person succeed, look better internally, be more respected internally and generate better business outcomes, they will invite you to the table, but not just to talk about what you're good at, they want to talk about the business. And they want to get your input into what they're doing with the business. And if you're invited into that conversation, you know you are in the trusted advisor seat. So there you go. Advancing customers, really important topic. I could talk for days on just this topic, but a really key framework to help you both navigate internally and externally in a really simple way to advance your business over the next coming months.